The wind howled across the Arctic research station like a hungry ghost, but Dr. Nathan Reed barely noticed anymore. After 3 years studying climate patterns at the remote facility, the endless white landscape and perpetual winter had become as familiar as breathing. He adjusted his thermal gloves and checked the meteorological readings one more time before preparing to head back inside. That's when the sky broke open. The aurora borealis above him suddenly fractured, its usual green curtain torn apart by a streak of silver-blue light. Nathan's instruments went haywire, their displays flickering wildly as the temperature dropped even further. The object, whatever it was, carved through the night sky like a knife through silk, leaving a trail of crystalline particles in its wake. "Control, are you seeing this?" Nathan's voice crackled over the radio, but only static answered. The object was moving fast, too fast, and it was heading straight for the ice sheet 3 kilometers east of the station. Nathan didn't think twice. He jumped into the waiting snowmobile and gunned the engine, following the descending light. The impact, when it came, was nearly silent, a soft crunch of ice and snow, as if the frozen landscape itself was sighing. By the time he reached the crash site, a perfect circular depression stretched before him, steam rising from its edges where the ice had instantly vaporized. And in the center, gleaming like a shard of starlight, was a pod. Nathan approached cautiously, his scientific training warring with basic survival instincts. The pod's surface was unlike any material he'd ever seen, it seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury, but it was warm to the touch despite the sub-zero temperatures. As he circled it, searching for any identifying marks, a seam appeared in the smooth surface. The pod was opening. Inside, curled in a fetal position, was a being that defied everything Nathan thought he knew about life. Her form was vaguely humanoid, but her skin was translucent, showing crystalline structures beneath that pulsed with inner light. Her hair, if you could call it that, was a cascade of luminescent filaments that seemed to float in an invisible current. She was injured. Even with his limited understanding of her biology, Nathan could see that some of the crystal structures within her were fractured, their light flickering erratically. Her eyes opened, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle pattern, and fixed on him. They were the color of polar ice at sunrise. "Help," she said, the word forming in his mind rather than in the air between them. "Please." Nathan's hands shook as he keyed his radio again. "Control, do you copy? This is Dr. Reed. I need everything. Medical team, security, first contact protocols. Everything." Static was his only answer. The aurora above had intensified, forming patterns he'd never seen before. They were alone out here, him and this impossible visitor from the stars. The being, female, he somehow knew, tried to move and made a sound like wind chimes shattering. Nathan made his decision. Protocol be damned, she needed help, and he was the only one here to give it. "I'm going to help you," he said clearly, hoping she could understand him as he had understood her. "Can you tell me your name?" Her response came in waves of light and sensation rather than words, but somehow Nathan knew she was called Nova. As he carefully helped her from the pod, supporting her surprisingly light frame, he noticed that where their bodies touched, tiny sparkles of light danced between them. "I'm Nathan," he told her as they made their way to the snowmobile. "You're safe now. I promise." Nova's grip on his arm tightened slightly, and in his mind, he felt rather than heard her response, "The others will come. They always do." The journey back to the station was tense, with Nova's crystalline form glowing softly against his back as she held on. Nathan's mind raced with questions. Who was she? What were the others she mentioned? And most importantly, what was he supposed to do now? As they approached the station, the lights finally flickered back to life. Nathan's radio crackled with worried voices from control, demanding status reports and explanations. He looked at Nova, her alien beauty both terrifying and mesmerizing in the Arctic twilight. "Let me do the talking," he said softly as they reached the station's entrance. Whatever brought you here, whatever's coming after you, we'll figure it out together. Nova's response was a pulse of warm light that spread through his mind like hope. As the station's security doors hissed open, Nathan realized his life's work studying patterns in nature hadn't prepared him for this pattern-breaking moment. But something told him that meeting Nova wasn't just chance, it was the beginning of something much bigger than both of them. And somewhere above, beyond the swirling aurora, the stars seemed to pulse with anticipation. The isolation ward of the research station had never felt more crowded, despite containing only 3 people. Dr. Nathan Reed watched through the observation window as Dr. Maya Chen, the station's medical officer, attempted to examine Nova. The crystalline being sat perfectly still, her inner light pulsing in patterns that Nathan was beginning to recognize as anxiety. Her molecular structure is like nothing I've ever seen, Dr. Chen muttered, staring at readings that seemed to change every few seconds. It's as if she's made of living crystal, but that's not even the strangest part. Nathan, these energy readings, they're off the charts. Nova's 3 eyes found Nathan's through the glass, and he felt that now familiar tingle in his mind. After 3 days of her presence at the station, he'd become something of a translator. She says her people, the Sirians, evolved in a system with binary stars. Their bodies developed to process and store massive amounts of radiation. The door hissed open as Commander James Walsh strode in, his weathered face tight with concern. We've got company coming. Military transport, ETA 3 hours. Sounds like someone up the chain finally decided what to do about our guest. Nathan's stomach clenched. He'd known this was coming, but he'd hoped for more time. More time to understand Nova, to learn her language of light and thought, to figure out why her presence made his heart race in a way that had nothing to do with first contact protocols. They can't take her, he said, surprising himself with the force in his voice. She's injured, she's scared, and she's trying to warn us about something. Walsh's expression softened slightly. Reed, you know this is bigger than us. Then this station. We've got the first confirmed extraterrestrial being on Earth, and she practically landed in our laps. Did you really think they'd just let us keep her here? Inside the examination room, Nova's light dimmed noticeably. She could sense their distress, even if she couldn't hear their words. Dr. Chen set down her instruments with a sigh. At least let me finish my examination. If they're going to take her, I want to make sure she's stable enough for transport. Nathan entered the room, and immediately Nova's lights brightened. Over the past few days, they'd developed a rudimentary form of communication, part telepathy, part sign language, part intuition. He sat beside her, noting how the crystal formations in her skin had begun to heal, creating beautiful geometric patterns that caught and reflected the light. More come, Nova projected into his mind, her thought voice tinged with worry. Not just your people. The shadows follow. Must warn. Shadows? Nathan asked aloud, drawing curious looks from Walsh and Chen. What shadows? Nova's response came in images rather than words, vast ships of darkness moving between stars, worlds going dark, civilizations falling silent. The Sirians had fled them for generations, moving from system to system, always staying one step ahead. Until Nova's scout ship had malfunctioned, sending her crashing to Earth. They follow the light, she explained, her inner glow pulsing with urgency. My people's light. Your son's light. All light. They consume it, use it, twist it. Earth is not ready. Nathan's blood ran cold as understanding dawned. She's not just a crashed alien, he told the others. She's a refugee. And she's trying to warn us that by coming here, she might have led something terrible straight to Earth. Walsh cursed softly. How long? Nova's answer came through Nathan, weeks, maybe days. The crash beacon, they will have detected it. The commander ran a hand through his gray hair. This changes things. When the military arrives, they need to know everything. Maybe we can dash. He was cut off by a sudden blaring alarm. Red emergency lights began flashing throughout the station. Dr. Chen rushed to a computer terminal, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Multiple bogies on radar, she reported, her voice tight. Coming in fast from high atmosphere. Too fast for any Earth aircraft. Nathan looked at Nova, saw the fear in her trilateral eyes. Not your people. She shook her head, her luminescent filaments swaying. Shadows. They found me faster than I thought. Nathan. I'm sorry. The lights throughout the station flickered ominously. Through the observation window, the aurora borealis had turned an unnatural shade of purple-black, as if something was draining its color from above. How do we fight them? Walsh demanded. Nova's response was simple and terrifying, you don't. You run. Or you learn to fight with light itself. As if in response to her words, the crystal structures in her body began to glow more intensely, filling the room with a radiance that made the humans squint. Nathan felt something building in the air, a charge, a possibility, a change. Then teach us, he said, taking her hand. Where their skin met, sparks of light danced between them. Teach us quickly. The military transport was still 2 hours away, but the shadows were already here. As Nova began to share her knowledge, pouring information directly into their minds in streams of light and understanding, Nathan realized that first contact had just become a crash course in survival. And somewhere above the station, in the darkening Arctic sky, the stars began to go out one by one. The research station's main laboratory had been transformed. Crystal formations grew from every surface, pulsing with the same inner light that characterized Nova's biology. Dr. Nathan Reed watched in amazement as she guided another crystal into existence, her 3 eyes closed in concentration as the structure emerged from seemingly nowhere. The light is everything, she projected into the minds of the assembled humans. It is energy, information, life itself. The shadows corrupt this fundamental force, they do not simply darken, they transform light into something hostile to life as we know it. Commander Walsh examined one of the crystals, its surface reflecting his weathered face. And these will help us fight? They will help us survive, Nova corrected, her luminescent filaments rippling with concern. The crystals can store and amplify light energy. When the shadows come, they will try to drain all energy, electrical, solar, even biological. These will serve as emergency reserves. Dr. Chen was already adapting some of the crystals to the station's power systems. The energy output is incredible, she reported. One crystal this size could power the entire station for weeks. Nathan felt a familiar tingle in his mind, Nova wanting to speak to him privately. Over the past week, as they'd worked to prepare for the coming threat, their mental connection had grown stronger. He followed her to the observation deck, where the Arctic night was unnaturally dark. No stars were visible now, and the aurora had vanished completely. Your species fascinates me, Nova projected, her inner light creating soft patterns on the glass. The shadows have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours, yet you don't flee. You prepare to fight. We're stubborn that way, Nathan replied with a slight smile. Humanity has a long history of facing impossible odds. Not impossible, Nova corrected. Improbable. There is a difference. She turned to face him, her crystalline form catching what little light remained. But there is something else I must tell you, something I have withheld. Nathan felt his heart rate increase. What is it? The military force is approaching, they are not coming to help. They are coming to contain. My presence here, the technology one represent, some of your leaders see it as an opportunity. They do not yet understand the true threat. As if to emphasize her point, the distant horizon flickered with unnatural darkness. The shadows were testing Earth's atmosphere, preparing for their assault. How do you know this? Nathan asked, though deep down he already suspected the answer. Because I can read more than just surface thoughts, Nathan. The closer I am to someone, the more I understand them. And you. She reached out, her crystalline fingers almost touching his face. I understand very well indeed. The moment was interrupted by a violent tremor that shook the entire station. Emergency lights flashed as Commander Walsh's voice came over the intercom, "They're here. Multiple contact points in the upper atmosphere." Nova's form began to pulse with intense light. "Nathan, I need you to trust me. What I'm about to do, it will change everything." "I trust you," he said without hesitation, and was rewarded with a burst of warmth in his mind. Nova pressed her hands against the observation window, and suddenly the glass began to crystallize, patterns spreading outward like frost. But these weren't just patterns, they were circuits, conduits, a vast network of light-carrying pathways. "The shadows think they understand light," Nova projected, her mental voice stronger than ever. "But they only understand it as a resource to be consumed. They don't understand it as life, as connection, as..." She turned to Nathan, her 3 eyes glowing intensely. "As love." The crystallization spread rapidly now, covering the station's exterior in a gleaming lattice. Above them, the darkness between the clouds began to move with purpose, reaching down with tendril-like formations that absorbed all light they touched. "Dr. Chen." Nova called out mentally to everyone in the station. "Activate the crystal network now." The station hummed to life as energy began flowing through Nova's crystal circuits. But instead of just providing power, the network began to pulse in complex patterns. Nathan felt something building, a resonance that seemed to vibrate at the quantum level. "What's happening?" he asked, watching as Nova's own crystalline form began to synchronize with the network. "I'm showing your world how to fight back," she answered. "The shadows consume light, yes. But they've never encountered light that fights to remain free." The crystal network erupted with brilliance, sending beams of pure energy into the encroaching darkness. Where light met shadow, there was neither victory nor defeat, instead, there was transformation. The darkness twisted, tried to corrupt the light, but the light refused to be changed. "They don't understand," Nova projected triumphantly. "Light isn't just energy, it's information, memory, connection. And humans." She turned to Nathan, her form now blazing like a star. "Humans understand connection better than any species I've encountered." As military helicopters appeared on the horizon, and the battle between light and shadow intensified overhead, Nathan realized that this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about evolution, humanity's next step into a universe far stranger and more wonderful than they'd imagined. And somewhere in the chaos above, the stars began to fight back. The military helicopters landed in a storm of swirling snow, disgorging teams of heavily armed soldiers into the crystalline wonderland the station had become. Nova's network of light-conducting crystals transformed the Arctic research facility into something that looked more like an alien cathedral, its surfaces refracting and amplifying every photon of available light. Colonel Rebecca Harrison emerged from the lead helicopter, her face a mask of professional detachment. "Dr. Reed," she called out over the wind, "I'm here to assume command of this facility and secure the extraterrestrial entity." Nathan stood his ground at the station's entrance, feeling Nova's presence in his mind like a warm beacon. "With all due respect, Colonel, we're a little busy fighting an alien invasion. The entity you're here to secure is the only reason Earth has a chance." Above them, the battle continued to rage. The shadow's dark tendrils probed at Nova's crystal network, seeking weaknesses, while pulses of pure light pushed them back. It was like watching an aurora made of opposing forces, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "That's precisely why we need to secure her," Harrison replied, gesturing for her teams to move forward. "This technology, these crystals, they could revolutionize everything from energy production to weapons development. We can't leave that in civilian hands." "You're not listening," Nathan insisted. "The shadows aren't just some enemy we can fight with conventional weapons. They're a fundamental threat to light itself. To life itself." Inside the station, Nova's voice echoed in his mind, "Let them in, Nathan. They need to see. Commander Walsh appeared at Nathan's side as they led the military contingent inside. The interior of the station had been even more dramatically transformed than the exterior. Crystal formations created geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with their own inner mathematics, and in the center of it all stood Nova, her crystalline form radiating with purpose. "Colonel Harrison," she projected, her mental voice reaching everyone present. "Your weapons cannot harm the shadows. But perhaps you can still help us save your world." The colonel's hand instinctively went to her sidearm, but she froze as Nova shared visions directly into her mind: the fall of countless civilizations, the spreading darkness between stars, the corruption of light itself into something that brought death rather than life. "My God," Harrison whispered. A violent tremor shook the station. Dr. Chen's voice came over the intercom: "The crystal network is failing. The shadows are adapting to the frequency." Nova's three eyes locked with Nathan's. "There's only one way," she projected privately to him. "The network needs a human consciousness to help guide it. The shadows don't understand human neural patterns, they can't corrupt what they can't comprehend." "What are you saying?" Nathan asked, though he already knew. "I need you to join with me. Completely. Your mind, my light. Together." Colonel Harrison was barking orders, deploying her teams to defensive positions, but Nathan barely heard her. He stepped forward, reaching for Nova's outstretched hand. Where their fingers met, light sparked and danced. "It will change you," Nova warned. "There's no going back from this." Nathan smiled. "I changed the moment you crashed into my world." Their connection, already strong, suddenly expanded into something vast and beautiful. Nathan felt his consciousness merge with Nova's, felt the crystal network become an extension of their shared being. Human intuition met Sirian light manipulation, creating something entirely new. The station's crystal lattice blazed with renewed energy. Where before there had been just light fighting shadow, now there was something more: human emotions, memories, dreams, all encoded into the light itself. The shadows recoiled, unable to process or corrupt this new form of radiance. "Impossible," Harrison breathed, watching as the darkness above began to retreat. "No," Nova and Nathan responded in unison, their voices both mental and physical now. "This is humanity's gift to the universe. You don't just adapt to survive, you transform to thrive." The crystal network pulsed with images from Earth's history. Every time humans had faced extinction and chosen to evolve instead, every moment of connection that had lifted the species higher, every spark of love that had illuminated the darkness. The shadows, confronted with something they couldn't consume or corrupt, began to withdraw. But Nova and Nathan weren't finished. Through their joined consciousness, they pushed the crystal network's power outward, creating a protective lattice that began to spread around the entire planet. "They'll return," Colonel Harrison said, her military bearing softening as she watched the spectacle unfold. "Yes," Nova agreed through their shared voice. "But when they do, they'll find humanity ready. Earth will be a beacon in the darkness, a light that fights back." As the last shadow vessels retreated into space, Nathan felt Nova's joy mingling with his own. Their connection had given Earth its first victory against the darkness, but more importantly, it had shown both species a new way forward. The stars began to reappear one by one, but they looked different now. Through their shared vision, Nathan and Nova could see the light that connected everything, the radiance that bound all life together across the vast distances of space. And in that light, there was hope. 6 months after the Shadow invasion, the Arctic Research Station had become the heart of Earth's transformation. The crystalline network that Nova and Nathan created had spread across the globe, creating a living web of light that served as both planetary defense system and revolutionary power source. Nathan stood at the familiar observation window, his appearance subtly altered by his merger with Nova. Traces of crystalline structures now shimmered beneath his skin, catching the light like diamonds underwater. Through their shared consciousness, Nova's presence was a constant warmth in his mind. The Syrian ships will arrive tomorrow, she projected, her physical form materializing beside him in a cascade of light. My people have many questions about what we've created here. So does everyone else, Nathan replied, watching a team of scientists working with the crystal formations outside. Dr. Chen had become the leading expert in crystal integration technology, helping to revolutionize everything from medicine to space travel. Colonel Harrison, now General Harrison, approached them, her boots clicking on the crystallized floor. The Security Council has approved the partnership agreement. Once your people arrive, we can begin establishing the joint defense network. The months following the Shadow attack had changed more than just the station. Humanity, faced with irrefutable evidence of both cosmic threats and possibilities, had begun to unite in unprecedented ways. The Crystal Network didn't just protect Earth, it connected people, allowing for instantaneous communication and shared experiences across any distance. We never imagined joining with another species like this, Nova admitted, her three eyes taking in the bustling activity of the station. The shadows forced us to remain nomadic, always running, never forming lasting bonds. But humans. She turned to Nathan, radiating affection. You showed us another way. Commander Walsh, now director of the newly formed Earth-Syrian Integration Project, joined their gathering. The first civilian integration volunteers have been screened and approved. Assuming the Syrian Council agrees, we can begin the next phase. Nathan felt Nova's excitement ripple through their bond. The process they had pioneered, the joining of human consciousness with Syrian light manipulation, had proven to be more than just a defensive measure. It was a path to something greater, a way for both species to transcend their limitations. There will be challenges, Nova projected to all of them. Not everyone will accept this level of change. And the shadows will return, stronger next time. Let them come, Harrison said with quiet confidence. Every day we grow stronger too. The Crystal Network now extends to our lunar colonies, and Mars is next. We're not just defending Earth anymore, we're reaching for the stars. Through their shared vision, Nathan and Nova watched the network pulse with life. Each point of light represented a connection, a story, a possibility. Human ingenuity combined with Syrian light manipulation had created something unprecedented in the galaxy, a civilization that didn't just use light, but had become one with it. The shadows tried to consume light, Nathan mused, but they never understood what it truly was. Not just energy or information, but connection, Nova finished. Love. The force that brings beings together across any distance, any difference. Above them, the aurora borealis danced with new colors, the signature of Syrian ships approaching in hyperspace. But unlike Nova's crash landing a few months ago, this arrival would be met with celebration rather than fear. What do you think they'll make of us? Harrison asked, watching the lights in the sky. This hybrid civilization we're becoming? Nova's response filled their minds with warmth. They will see what I saw in humanity from the beginning, the capacity to face the impossible and transform it into the achievable. You don't just adapt or survive, you transcend. Nathan felt the Crystal Network surge with shared emotion as people around the world watched the approaching ships through the connected consciousness they now all shared. Humanity's first steps into a larger galaxy had been born of crisis, but they had turned that crisis into opportunity. The shadows had sought to extinguish light from the universe, but they had instead sparked something luminous and new. In joining together, humans and Syrians had created not just a defense against darkness, but a new way of existing, one where light, life, and love were one and the same. As the first Syrian ships entered Earth's atmosphere, their crystalline hulls joining seamlessly with the global network, Nathan and Nova shared a single thought: this was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a much greater one. The light would go on, and in its radiance, all things were possible.